You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a charm, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And I'm Ethan. And there's a lot to get into this evening, and there's some things that I'd like to get into, and some stats that I'd like to get into. And I usually don't get into a lot of stats and things like that. But on this podcast, I think I kind of want to get kind of statistical on this one. So let's delve into that right now. So can I get a menu? But the first thing I want to get into, and like I said, this goes right back into stats that I was talking about. And that goes back into the last podcast I did, and that was Cam Jordan. It was his sacks that he had in the game against Seattle, and it was when I was looking at his stats and things, his sacks that he got on Geno Smith. When I was first looking at the game log and the games and the stat sheets from that, it said that he had only gotten a sack and a half there. Well, as the week progressed, they ended up changing it to 2 full sacks, because when before I had looked at the game log, I thought that, it wasn't two full sacks. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. So originally they had given half a sack to Demario Davis, and I was like, oh, that didn't seem right. Well, just like I thought, that they ended up changing it and giving him 2 full sacks. And there's actually a funny, Cam Jordan, he was mic'd up during that game against Seattle, and I guess shortly after the game, he was interviewed after that, and they told him that he had 1.5 sack, and he was like, oh, what? They gave Double D half my sack? I knew they were going to do that. And so that's pretty funny that he suspected the same thing, I guess, that they were going to give half of his sack away. So now, instead of having just I think 2.5 sacks on the season, he has three full sacks. So he's close to being on pace to having 12 sacks this season. I guess it's weird that you can't say that they're at the quarter mark now, because there's not an even amount of games because of the 17 season. It was usually easy because they would be like at the quarter mark, but you could say that he's on pace to have between 12 and 11 sacks now. So he's on pace to have double-digit sacks again this season, even at his age of 33 years old, I think. So, hey, Cam Jordan, he's playing better at this point in the season than he was last year, because last year he didn't really start playing this good until like really late in the season, when he ended up having like a bunch of sacks late. So he's already playing like really good. He's already been playing great this season so far. So the next person I want to talk about is Andy Dalton. It looks like Andy Dalton is going to start again this week, and I'm sure a lot of people are happy about that. And I'm kind of happy about it, just from once again, just from a health standpoint. I don't think I think Andy Dalton is, once again, he's probably the healthier option. I just don't see how you could be how Jameis Winston could be healthy from the fractured back, vertebrae, the ankle injury, the hip flexor, all of that, and this was the first time from all of that 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 Jameis Winston has practiced in 2 weeks, and he's finally just been a limited participant until he's not even on the injury report, not listed on the injury report at all. I don't think they should even think about letting Jameis Winston start a game. And honestly, until Andy Dalton loses a game, the Saints lose a game with Andy Dalton starting, I don't think Jameis Winston should get his job back, honestly. But I think that's a good thing that Andy Dalton is going to start, and because they play this game against Cincinnati on Sunday, and then they have a short week, and then go to Arizona and play. I think he should probably be starting this game and then be starting in Arizona too. I just don't think it would make any sense that he would start this game and then they would play a short week and Jameis Winston would start against Arizona. That just really wouldn't make any sense, honestly. So I would be very surprised if Andy Dalton didn't start the next two games either. Didn't start this game and the game against Arizona. That just really wouldn't make sense. So for Saints fan, for the ones that are happy to see Andy Dalton, you should probably expect to see him for these next two games. And also with Andy Dalton, a lot of people are calling this Andy Dalton revenge game. Well, I don't know if you could really say that, honestly, because the last two times and that he's played, had an opportunity to play his former team, he's actually beat them, which was a little surprising when I saw that. And he's played them the last two seasons, which is also that's quite a surprise to me as well. So he played them last year when he was with the Chicago Bears, and he played them the year prior to that with the Cowboys as well. So that's kind of an interesting stat note, and it's I guess that's the crazy thing. That's one of the funny sayings that you hear. You can't beat a team three times. So of course he's with the Saints now, so he'll probably lose this game now because he can't beat a team three times in a row. It's hard to beat a team three times, so he'll probably lose this game now because he's with the Saints. That's definitely the Saints' luck. So it'll be really surprising if he beats them three times in a row in 3 years. But that would be amazing if he does. But that's so it's kind of hard to say that it's Andy Dalton's revenge game, seeing how he's already beat them the last 2 years that he's already played them. So maybe not revenge game, but maybe revenge tour. That's revenge tour, revenge series. I like that a little. The sound of that a little bit more. So let's go on to a stat. I found this really interesting stat that's about big plays through week 5 through the first 5 weeks here, and this is a wild one that I found that includes the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is something I would have never expected to find the Cincinnati Bengals on. And I really hope it doesn't blow up in the Saints' face for me mentioning this, but I would have never expected the Bengals to be second to the bottom of this list. And it's most big plays through week 5. And the Cincinnati Bengals are second to the bottom, right above the Los Angeles Rams. And they only have 21 big plays through the first 5 weeks, and that includes 10 plus 10 plus rushing yards, only 8 8 of those and 20 plus receptions with only 13 of those. And then New Orleans is like almost right in the middle there. I think they're like, let's see, they're at 1, 2. Yeah, New Orleans is right at 16, and they have 32 big plays, and that they have 14 10-yard rushes and 18 20 plus yard receptions. So New Orleans is right in the middle, and Cincinnati is second to last, and then you have Philadelphia right at the top with like 44 big plays, and then you have Los Angeles with only 19. But that is just a crazy stat, and I really hope with the fact that New Orleans with Marcus May out, with him being out last week at safety, and them giving up like 30 plus yard big plays on the ground and receiving. I hope that helps them. I hope that carries over into this game. That would be nice if that carries over into this game. But yeah, I thought that was just an amazing stat that I saw on Twitter. Okay, so next thing I want to go to is the injury report, and wow, it was a long one, and it was a hard one to follow, and as the week progressed, it definitely didn't get any better as it went along, and I didn't really expect it to. It didn't change as the week went along, but I'll just go through it and kind of give my thoughts about it and let people hear it if they haven't heard it at all. But I'm sure most people that follow Saints already know that they've just been pretty much since week 1, they've been pretty much beat up the whole season, and as the weeks go by, it seems to get worse and worse. But Deontay Hardy, he didn't practice all week, and game status is out. Jarvis Landry, and that's with a foot. Jarvis Landry, ankle, didn't practice all week, and his game status is out. Michael Thomas with a foot, didn't practice all week, game status out. Marshawn Lattimore, abdomen, didn't practice all week, game status out. Peyton Turner, chest, didn't practice all week, game status out. Chris Olave, concussion, didn't practice on Wednesday, but then was limited on Thursday, and then was full Friday, and then is listed as questionable. Then Calvin Throckmorton didn't practice on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, then limited the rest of the week, and then it's questionable. And then Ryan Ramczyk, no designation. Paulson Adebo, limited all week, questionable. TJ Gray, no game designation. Taysom Hill, no game designation. Marcus May, limited all week, questionable. Malcolm Roach, limited all week, questionable, and Jameis Winston, questionable all week, or limited all week, questionable. So that's the Saints injury report. So obviously all those people that are out, I don't expect to play. But the key one here is probably Chris Olave, and his is really surprising here, because I read something off of Twitter talking about how he had to go through the 5 stages of concussion protocol, and I think like on I think it was on Thursday or something that he was already to like the 3rd stage, and how that was like a really good sign that he was already through the 3rd stage of the 5 stages. And then now that he was full practice on Friday, and he's listed as questionable. But man, with the whole Tua Tagovailoa situation, and how there's so much bad press around concussions, and how he was like knocked out cold, and how that was such a vicious concussion, and how bad that looked, even with him being a full practice on Friday, and him being listed as questionable. I would be very surprised. I don't know if I'd be very surprised, but I would be kind of surprised if he played on Sunday. And honestly, I kind of don't, because he is such a talented player and I like him so much and he's such a valuable piece to our team. I really don't want to see him play. I don't want him to become like kind of I don't want him to become like the next Brandon Cooks, because he kind of ended up having issues with that. He kind of became troubled with concussions over the course of his career, even though Brandon Cooks has still been pretty much a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, and I think is doing fine now. But Brandon Cooks, he had some concussions with the Saints, and then had some concussions with the Patriots, and then had some concussions with the Texans. And I don't want that to be an issue with Chris Olave, just because we think, oh, we need a win against the Bengals. Because even with the Saints and where they are in this season, I don't predict the Saints are going to win the Super Bowl this season. So is it really worth risking Chris Olave's long-term health to beat the Bengals? I really don't think it is. And then really the only other one that that concerns me, or that's really key here, is Marcus May. And his is so weird to me, because this is like the 3rd week in a row where he's been like limited in practice like all week with the rib injury, and then he's listed as questionable. But that's happened two times previous, where he's limited in practice all week, and then he's questionable, and then he didn't end up playing the last 2 weeks. But you can't believe anything the coaches say. But I guess Dennis Allen said it's a good chance he's going to play. But then they've said this stuff about Michael Thomas and his toe injury. And I think Adam Schefter said last week before the game against Seattle is that he expected Michael Thomas to play against the Bengals, and hell, he didn't practice all week, and he's out for this game. So you can hardly believe what anyone says. So I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus May missed this game again, even though with Marshawn Lattimore being out, we really need Marcus May back for this game. But that's my thoughts on the injury report. But for the Bengals, they're lucky. They have a very short injury report. Lil Collins, he didn't practice on Wednesday, and then was limited on Thursday, and then was full on Friday. No designation, game status designation. And then T. Higgins didn't practice all week, but was limited on Friday, was questionable. Jonah Williams didn't practice all week, but was limited on Friday, is questionable. David Asasi was limited all week, but has no game designation. Hayden Hurst was limited all week, but was questionable. Samaje Perine was limited all week, but was full on Friday, but has no game designation. I already know how teams are when they're against the Saints. If they're questionable or didn't practice all week, but were limited on Friday and then are questionable, all those guys are probably going to play. I already know if players are going to get magically healthy before a game or game time decisions, if they're playing against the Saints, I can almost guarantee you they're all going to play. So the it's just crazy how the Saints are so ridiculously injured, and almost half their starters are injured. But then you look at another team's injury report, like almost every single one of their players are healthy. It's just the compare and contrast is just is crazy sometimes when you look at another team's injury report compared to the Saints. It blows my mind sometimes. But man, I gotta stop looking at that. It's depressing me. It's just kind of making me mad. All right, so back to the stats. I said I was going to talk about some stats. So this is going to be back into game breakdowns, and we know about our guys, so we're going to talk a little bit about Cincinnati and their players, because I think I don't think people necessarily like the Bengals, but I think they like some of the players on the Bengals because of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, Von Bell, Eli Apple. He used to play here, but I guess people don't really like him. But he was a Saint. He played for the Saints. But so I think some people, I guess last year during the playoffs, people probably rooting for the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely were rooting for them in the Super Bowl over the Los Angeles Rams. But so maybe break down the Cincinnati Bengals team a little bit more than previous opponents. So first off, break down their points scored and their points allowed, and they're probably not scoring as many points as people would have expected them to be scoring, but they're only scoring 21.6 points a game this year, which I'm sure most people would have probably been expecting them to be scoring more upwards towards, I would say probably like 28, somewhere up in the 3 and 4 touchdowns a game range, but their defense has been really good. I mean, only 17.8 points a game. Like, that's ridiculously good. 17.8 points a game, which that does not bode well for the Saints, seeing how they haven't been playing great on offense. The last 2 weeks they've been pretty good, but with how beat up they are, missing their top 2 wide receivers, possibly their third if Chris Olave is held out of this game, and still, question marks with Andy Dalton. That's a number that scares me there, with how good Cincinnati's defense could possibly be playing. So that concerns me quite a bit there. Okay, so we know Joe Burrow. He's probably been pretty underwhelming this season. He's been putting up the yards and things like that, but not the touchdowns. The touchdown to interception ratio hasn't been great. He's attempted 191 attempts and 124 completions for a 64.9 completion percentage. But he's only thrown 9 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, but he's been sacked 18 times, which that really bodes well for the Saints, because honestly, that's about one of the only bright spots for the Saints over the last couple games because against Cincinnati, against the Vikings, against the Seahawks, that they have gotten after the quarterback. They've been able to get after the quarterback. So Joe Burrow, a lot of people say he's talented and he can move around, but honestly, he's not a very mobile quarterback. There really aren't that many pocket passers uh, that anymore, and his offensive line's not great. He's not that mobile in the pocket. He's not good at like stepping up. So I expect the Saints to be able to get after him. I would be surprised if the Saints don't get any less than 3 sacks on him, just like they did on Geno Smith. And Geno Smith is a lot more mobile than Joe Burrow. So I would be blown away if the Saints don't at least get 3 sacks on Joe Burrow as well. And then in the running game, Joe Mixon, I would say he's probably having a down year as well. Even though he's getting the yards, he's putting up the yards, kind of like Joe Burrow. He's putting up the yards, but the average is not there. The touchdowns are not there. He has 96 attempts for 302 yards, but his average is only 3.1 yards a carry, and he only has 1 touchdown. And I guess this is some kind of stat for only 1 big run, and that's for a 31-yard game. So that sounds to be boding well for the Saints. I know I hate saying these types of things. It'll probably, like, once again, I say these things, it'll probably blow up on our face. But yeah, he's also having a down year as well. But this is where all their weapons and stuff come into play, is their receivers. Their receivers. They have a plethora of receivers with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Hayden Hurst, and even Joe Mixon gets into the mix as well. So Jamar Chase, he has 32 receptions for 343 yards and 2 touchdowns. T. Higgins has 20 receptions for 315 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Boyd has 15 catches for 234 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hayden Hurst has 20 catches for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Joe Mixon even has 20 catches for 126 yards and no touchdowns. But I mean, that's kind of what the Saints expected to have out of their receiving core this year, but it just hasn't come together. It really hasn't added up for them, mainly because they haven't been able to stay healthy. But they have weapons. They have weapons. That's why it's really disappointing that they're not healthy. They're probably gonna miss. They're gonna miss Lattimore. That's for sure. And hopefully Marcus May is healthy, because if they're not, I can guarantee you one of those guys, out of all those weapons, one of those guys is going to get loose on you if they're missing Marcus Lattimore, or Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus May. I can guarantee you one of those guys is going to get loose on you. And then when it comes to the defense, they got guys there that we're familiar with as well. And so Logan Wilson, he's basically our version of Pete Warner and Demario Davis. He's their leading tackler with 33 tackles. He's probably right up there with leading the league in tackles with Pete Warner. And then Von Bell, he's probably close to leading, for the first time probably ever in his career. He's probably close to leading the league in interceptions right now with 3 interceptions. I think in his entire career with the Saints, he only ever had 1 interception, and he's already got 3 interceptions this year. So that's wild that he already has 3 interceptions. And then with let's see, Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson has 2.5 sacks already. He's their leading sack leader. And then BJ Hill, the defensive tackle, is their second sack leader with 1.5. And then a guy that I would have expected to be a little bit better this season, he's the bookend to Trey Hendrickson, is Sam Hubbard. He only has 1 so far, but I can't really say much to that because Marcus Davenport is Cam Jordan's bookend, and I think he only has half a sack. So I mean, that happens sometimes early in the season. So but those are some of the guys to watch out for on defense: Trey Hendrickson, BJ Hill, Von Bell, Sam Hubbard, Logan Wilson. So on to my hot takes now, and I think I probably just mentioned him. This is one that I really don't want to be picking here, and he's a former Saint. Like I said, I just mentioned him. I think Trey Hendrickson, maybe we've been talking about Andy Dalton's revenge game, but I think Trey Hendrickson may end up having maybe his revenge game, his return to the Dome game, and I think he may end up getting loose against James Hurst a couple times, and I think he's going to end up getting maybe 2 sacks against James Hurst. And hopefully, maybe they won't be too impactful, and hopefully he doesn't force a fumble on either of them. But I think Trey Hendrickson is going to end up having a good game. I think he's going to have 2 sacks against James Hurst because he plays that. I guess it's on his right side. James Hurst blind side. That's usually the side he plays on. So that's my hot take. I think Trey Hendrickson is going to have 2 sacks. And then for my BAM pick, I just think the Saints are too beat up. I think missing possibly your best defensive player and Marshawn Lattimore is just too much. And you don't know if you don't know for sure if you're getting Marcus May back and how bad they played on defense last week. That's too much to know. You don't know if you're going to be missing your 3 starting wide receivers and Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave. I just think that's too much. So I'm going to be picking the Bengals in this one. I don't like it, but I'm picking the Bengals to win 31-24. Hopefully it goes the other way, but that's what I'm going to be picking. But I think that's all I have for you this evening. But I'll still be pulling for the Saints either way. So with that, who dat? And with that, can I get a check, please?